In order to succeed in life, there's some things you may have to do. The most important thing is getting out of that comfort zone. The story's up next. Trust and believe. Trust and believe. You are tuned into episode 118 of the NOMADCAST, a podcast that covers multiple topics. I'm your host, Mr. Anderson. Thank you for tuning in today. Now, to stay consistent, what's going on this week? Every day of this week, as I mentioned yesterday, going to have re-airs of previous episodes. So digging into the archives for today, we're going to resurrect episode 23 from 27 October 2021. And that story takes place in Okinawa, Japan. My command sergeant major made a move and moved me from the support operations section to the S3 section. Now, just to give you a little backstory, I was the platoon sergeant of the support operations section, moved out of the platoon sergeant seat, and now I was just worried about myself. Living good, I was comfortable. I was in the comfort zone. So my command sergeant major was like, no, we need to move you. Career progression. You're stagnant. You need to do something different. And I'm like, I'm in the comfort zone. Life is good. Why you want to move me? Go pick on somebody else, right? But I would tell you, in all seriousness and fairness, I would tell you, and take this to my grave, that move played a huge factor in me ultimately earning a sequence number for the rank of Master Sergeant and subsequently pinning on the rank of Master Sergeant when I PCS'd to Korea in 2017. And guess what? The Command Sergeant Major who moved me from the support operations section to the S3, guess who was at my promotion ceremony in Korea? Command Sergeant Major, as you can see here. So I would tell you, life comes full circle. Definitely honored that he did that. And I moved to the S3, phenomenal section, great mentors, leaders, even in the support operations section. The whole unit, I tell you, that unit in Japan, that unit in Korea, best, phenomenal. Can't even freaking speak on it. Phenomenal. So with all that being said, sit back, relax, tune in, and watch this episode talking about moving out of your comfort zone. Trust and believe. About how my command sergeant major used his leverage, used his influence, used his power, which is always associated with a command sergeant major using their power and everything to move me from one section to another one in order for me to potentially make the rank of Master Sergeant. And that's what ended up happening. So I'm kind of going to break down the reason why he did it, when he did it, and how he did it. So I'm going to take you back to, 2016. We were stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And we had already been there for about 2 years because we got there 2014. And the unit I was in Okinawa, Japan, we were tasked with conducting, synchronizing all the Pacific Pathway missions. Pacific Pathways went from Hawaii to Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia, to Japan and back, and all these other places, right? Well, our unit was tasked with going on those missions, being in charge of the carousels, being in charge of all your transportation efforts, supply efforts, so on and so forth. We were kind of like the leaders on the ground to ensure the training units got everything they needed. So basically, I worked in the support operations, which we call the SPO in the Army. And your support operations is comprised of different commodities. So you have your supply and logistics, which is what I was in charge of. You have your transportation elements. You have your maintenance, your food service, fuel and water. You have in our unit, we had watercraft operations as well, because we conducted a lot of the vessel operation in Japan. So we had I may be missing some. We had the planners that planned the operation and everything, and I may be missing some. And usually your SPO, depending on the echelon, is comprised of a lieutenant colonel and a sergeant major. that's in charge of that SPO, and then everyone else is typically you have your warrant officers, some captains, master sergeants, sergeant first class, and so on and so forth. And our SPO, the most junior person in our SPO was a staff sergeant. So we didn't have, soldier issues because it was like a big boy section. We worried about the 3 levels of sustainment, which is what your strategic, your operational, and your tactical. So those was our things. So we didn't have to deal with like soldier type issues. You know what I mean? We had our SPO platoon, we had our SPO platoon sergeant. And when I got there in 2014, I had just came off recruiting duty. So the best way for me to get back in the fight, knowing that the Army sent me on recruiting prior to that assignment, is that, hey, okay, I'm not a recruiter no more. Recruiting duty is over. Let me jump back in. I'm a sergeant first class. Let me go in. I want to be the platoon sergeant. So I was the SPO platoon sergeant for probably about a year and a half, because what they did, they rotated you out. You do it a year, and then you let another E7 get his or her time as a platoon sergeant, because you need that time in order to advance, right? And so I had came out the platoon sergeant seat, and I was in charge of the supply and logistics division in our SPO. And basically what I did, I coordinated and synchronized all the logistical efforts on Japan. And my higher headquarters was in Hawaii. So I had to send all my reports, all my weekly reports, and all my data and everything. I had to virtually send all that to my higher headquarters, which is still in Hawaii, right? So I dealt with all that. And so I was very comfortable. Let me tell you, and my wife will tell you this, my day started with, especially after I got out the platoon sergeant position, it was just me, right? I would come in, I would do PT, I'd come in about, after I got done with PT and cleaned up and everything, I would come in about 9 o'clock, sometimes 9:30, because I was the only guy. I was pretty much the SME, the subject matter expert on all logistical operations in that SPO and coordinating all the efforts in Japan, right? So I was like, shoot, man, I'm good, and I didn't have like a person behind me. It was just me. No one assisted me, right? And so I would come to work about 9:30. I leave about 15:30. I tell the SPO sergeant major, hey, sergeant major, I got an appointment. I got to, do whatever. And I was the only one. All my reports were set up. All my data, everything's been codified and arranged and everything. So I was good. I didn't have nothing else. I wasn't the platoon sergeant no more. So I ain't got to worry about, the platoon issues and admin issues and none of this other stuff. I'm out. I'm gone. I go pick my son up from daggone, after he get out of school, go to the after school care on base, and we going home. I go to the commissary, I go to the PX or whatever, right? Unless we had like a mandatory formation, which is rare, right, in our section. And so my command sergeant major was like, you know what, you real comfortable over there, you real comfortable in the SPO. I'm gonna have to shake some things up. So I'm like, sergeant major, I'm good. No, I'm good. I am good. Life is good, because that was like one of the first times that I could just chill. I was chilling. It was really about me then. And so we had got tasked to go head up a mission in the Philippines. And we was there for probably maybe 58 days, 55 days or something like that. And so we was in the Philippines coordinating all the logistical efforts, the transportation, the fuel, the water. Everything. We was doing everything. We had war fighters coming from all over in the States coming to the Philippines to train as part of Pacific Pathways, right? So we were there, and we was probably maybe 10 days away from rotating back to Okinawa. All the units have trained. We reorganized them, did everything, reset them, and sent the equipment out back to their respective duty assignments, whatever it came from. So we was pretty much just cleaning everything up, making sure we reset the battlefield, reset the footprint and everything, right? So we was already back in the hotel, because we was in a field-like environment And then the last few days of the operation, after everything was finished, we was in the hotel on the former Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines, right? So we just chilling. We had like maybe 10 days left. So now we're just doing administrative stuff, signing over the land and making sure all the contracts were reconciled and doing all that admin type stuff, right? Because all the training was done. So I had got word. I was in an elevator. I was like on the 5th floor of this hotel in the Philippines. Now I was getting ready to go to McDonald's or something because the McDonald's was right across the street. So I was getting ready to go there. And I got the note, my SPO colonel, he's a lieutenant colonel. He's like, hey, Sergeant Anderson, hey, man. He said, you tracking that Sergeant Major wants to move you to the S3. So I'm like, what? I said, no, I don't want to go to the S3. I'm good. Because I've been in the S3 before. And the S3 is pretty much the type of section that, again, they coordinate everything. It's not logistical coordination, but they're doing everything from the ceremonies to changing commands, full operations, strategic level operations, tactical operations. They're doing everything, right? They did everything. And the most junior person in that section was an E5. So you didn't have a lot of soldier issues. It was a big boy section, usually headed by, I think they had a major and there was a sergeant major, right? Again, the big boy section as well. And so I was like, no, I don't want to go to the go to the S3. I'm good. So I don't know, man. Sergeant Major wants to move you. So I'm like, okay, I got to get in touch with Command Sergeant Major. So I knew Command Sergeant Major was getting ready to go to TDY. I think he was going back to the States for like 10 days or something, right? I know I need to get in contact with him before he was wheels up and he left Okinawa to go to the States while on TDY. So I was like, okay. So I sent him a message and I was like, Sergeant Major, I'd like to talk to you. I know you're getting ready to prep and go on a mission back to the States for a little bit, but I'd like to talk to you regarding the rumor I'm hearing about me going to the S3. So he replied, all right, got it. I need, we can come talk on a Saturday because I'm wheels up on Sunday. So I'm like, okay. So once I left the Philippines, flew back to Okinawa, got settled and everything, I remember telling my wife, I said, I talked to Sergeant Major tomorrow. He's trying to move me to the S3. And she was like, you know what? You should do it. You've been in the SPO. You got comfortable, yada, yada. And I was like, well, shoot, man, you're supposed to be on my side. And she was like, look, are you trying to make Master Sergeant or what? She said, because you're right. You have gotten comfortable. So I'm like, yeah, babe, you're right. So I said, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go to this meeting tomorrow. And I'm just going to tell them how I feel about it and everything. And we'll see what happens. And we prayed on it and everything, because I didn't want to leave the SPO, man. The SPO, I was living good over there, because again, I was just worried about me, right? And so he was like, okay, I want to meet you at the PX, because I'm meeting with other senior advisors right before I talk to you, because he was meeting with the Sergeant Major, a couple of Marine Sergeant Majors, a couple of Navy guys equivalent to E9s, Air Force. They had like a joint meeting with all the E9 senior advisors on the island. And they would do this like every 2 weeks or whatever. So it just so happened it fell on the Saturday that me and him were talking. So I got there and I saw him, he kind of waved and nodded his head, acknowledged I was there. So I was there for probably about 45 minutes. I was kind of just waiting on him, So once they all left, he just called me on over. And he was like, what's going on? How you doing? I said, I'm good, Sergeant Major. How you doing? He was like, yeah. He said, so tell me why on earth should I allow you to stay in the SPO? I said, well, Sergeant Major. So I'm thinking before I even talked to him, I'm like, shoot, I've been a recruiter for the freaking Army. I know how to put freaking boots on the ground. I know how to freaking do all this stuff. There's no way he's going to tell me that I'm leaving. Shoot, I'm about to control this. I'm the freaking recruiter, so on and so forth. So I'm saying all this. And he was like, so tell me why you want to stay in the SPO. I said, well, Sergeant Major, I'm an integral part of the SPO. I go to all the Pacific Pathway missions. I go to all the exercises that we have in Thailand, the Philippines, mainland Japan, Australia. I'm going to all these. I'm the one that, you guys are tasked to lead these operations. Sergeant Major, I can't leave the SPO because I'm the only one that knows the logistics job that I'm doing. No one else is trained over there because I'm the only 92 Alpha, senior 92 Alpha in that section. So he was like, okay, you got a couple of other junior 92 alphas that can do your job. I say, knowing he was right, but I was like, no, Sergeant Major, I'm the only one that can do I'm the only one can do my job, because I'm doing this, and my higher echelons in Hawaii, they used to me, they know, He was like, okay. He's like, keep talking. So I'm like, yes, Sergeant Major. I said, I've already worked in the S3 a couple times before, so I'm used to the S3. I know what it's like, but I think I'm better served in this unit, so I can better serve this organization if I stay in the SPO, support operations. So he's kind of just looking at me, and I'm getting the feeling like, yep, I'm leaving. I'm going to the freaking S3. I could just tell. Whatever I was selling, he ain't buying. So he was like, let me tell you something. He said, if you already been passed up twice for Master Sergeant, right? And I said, Roger, Sergeant Major. He said, how did that make you feel? I said, well, it don't make me feel good. I said, it kind of makes me feel like, man, all I'm doing. He said, let me tell you something. He said, when all them Sergeant Majors are looking at all these records of all these E7s trying to make Master Sergeant, everything that you're doing is the same thing that other E7s are doing. That's, with the same type of unit you're in. They going on all these missions. They doing an outstanding job. They leading these missions. They synchronizing efforts. They coordinating efforts. They're doing everything they need to do. But you got to do more, especially as an E7. You coming off recruiting duty. You had honorable time doing that. So now you back in the fight. You left recruiting duty. You come to Japan, you was a platoon sergeant. You did the right thing there. Now you lead all these missions. You've done that. Now you have to do something else to show that these Sergeant Major that you are versatile. You can do other things. Nah, Sergeant Major, you don't understand. And, for him to make Command Sergeant Major, he got to go through everything I've been through. And it's kind of one of the things I always say. He ain't telling you because he guessing. He's telling you because he know, right? So I'm like, I'm trying to tell him about everything. I'm like, shoot, he's been in my position before. He's had to make it through the ranks. So we got to talking, and then he was like, all right, because I think at this time it was like June. He was like, I'm going on, once I come back from the States, I'm going on leave to Thailand for like 10 days. He said that'll bring me up to July, after the 4th of July weekend. He said, after that, you will be in the S3. He said, go talk to the Sergeant Major over there, and you're going to be in the S3. He said, so whatever you was trying to sell me today wasn't working, because I'm going to move you regardless of what you're saying. I was like, dang, Sergeant Major. So, what was cool about it, man, I have respect for Sergeant Major for even seeing that, I need to shift him and move him to another section in order for him to advance. So I was already good to go with the S3 Sergeant Major, friends to this day, friends with all these guys to this day, definitely a great mentor as well. And now he was like, yeah, I'm tracking Sergeant Major. Talk to me about you coming over. Can't wait to have you. I've been looking at you from afar when you was the platoon sergeant. You was doing everything, outstanding things. You're going to be a value asset to the S3. Can't wait to see you in July. And that right there put the stamp on, everything, how I was feeling. Because, I didn't want to go back to an S3 because I had been to one. But you know what? This S3 was different because we had water operation. I mean, we had so much stuff. It was such a dynamic section based upon, where we was at in Japan. Because the things that we were doing in Japan, we couldn't do if I was in the S3 at Fort Hood or I was an S3 somewhere else. So it was a unique environment. And I was like, I would be crazy to get upset about moving over here, right? And I was already cool with everybody that was over there. We all knew each other, so there was no issues with that. And that July, right after that 4th of July weekend in 2016, I went over there, and it was full throttle. I mean, it was nonstop, and I gave everything I had to that freaking S3. And then I put in work for that year, and then I got my evaluation. Everything was good to go. So then now it was time for the board to convene to select the future master sergeants in the Army. And guess what? I came up on that master sergeant list. You know what? Now, if Sergeant Major hadn't moved me from the SPO to the S3, would I have made master sergeant? I probably could have. But I will tell you, and I've said this in previous videos, Okinawa, Japan, when I was in the S3, even the SPO, but just speaking on this S3 level, it provided me the opportunity to see things holistically, because everything I did in the S3 when I was at Fort Lewis, I kind of worked in my own little section. I was part of the planning cell, so it was a little different, but I got to see things holistically. And my sergeant major, man, he put me out there, man. He threw me in the fire, being in charge of brigade level events, and I was the NEO manager. I mean, we did so much stuff, and the influence I had in that S3 was phenomenal, because most of those guys came from a tactical background. So now you mix in the tactical background. Some of them dudes worked at the strategic level, and dealing with operations. So I'm like, I could bring the sustainment level to the S3, and I'm like, man, this is great. This is a conglomerate. This is a hodgepodge of freaking genius right here. This is great. And so I end up coming up on the list to make Master Sergeant, and I think it was April of 2017. And funny thing about that, I think I had something wrong. I always had something wrong with my knee, but I was on quarters for like a week or something due to I had got shots on my knee or something was happening. And I remember everyone was calling me once the board results was released. Well, my name, getting promoted to Master Sergeant. And this was like April of 2017, and I didn't get promoted till November 17, because my sequence numbers, I think, was like at 49. So I had to wait, till people got promoted, or till the Army started promoting people. But I remember the sergeant major called me. He said, "Hey, man," he said, "congratulations." Now I got my knee issues. I'm taking this medicines. I'm like professionally high as a kite. I have no clue who I'm talking to. So I'm like, "Yeah, sergeant major." He said, "Hey, man, congratulations, man. I see you got a sequence number of 49. Congratulations, Master Sergeant." And I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "Do you know you made the Master Sergeant list?" And I was like, "Sergeant Major." I couldn't even get nothing out. I mean, I was so under the influence of all the prescription drugs they give you, because we had a Navy hospital in Japan. So they gave me these prescription drugs for my knee. So I'm gone. I'm not tracking anything he's saying, right? And but he was like, "Get some sleep, man. I'll see you next week. Congratulations." And people start calling me, just texting me, emailing me and everything. And my wife was like, "You know what?" She said, "I'm so glad that you got out your comfort zone and went from the SPO to that S3, because it challenged you, and that's what you needed." And I would tell you, that challenge that I had in that S3 in Okinawa, when I got to Korea that August of 2017, again, I gave them all of Damon Anderson that I could. And I ended up making Master Sergeant that November of 2017. And now I will always say Korea was the culminating event for everything I learned in the Army, but more importantly, everything I learned in Japan. And that S3, Korea was the culminating event, because I took everything. I was a whole different person. Man, I tell you, man, sometimes, you can use this story. Yeah, I'm telling a story on how a sergeant major saw something in me to move me from one section to another in order to advance. But I tell you, I was stuck in the comfort zone, and I was chilling, and he put me in the fire. And, it wasn't no more chilling, because it was just nonstop. I was still doing these Pacific Pathway missions. I was still doing all that stuff. But I'm so thankful that he moved me to the S3. And after a year being in the S3, and my evaluation was superb, that the Army said, "You know what? He needs to be the next Master Sergeant." And I ended up getting promoted. So I will always give props to my Sergeant Major in Japan, and also to my Sergeant Major that was in the S3. Even everyone, people that was in the SPO, people that was in the S3, everybody, man, it was such a phenomenal time, man. It was great. So I just kind of wanted to share that story. You could take, a lot of nuggets from that, being comfortable to, not being comfortable, but, it end up enriching your life, your family's quality of life and everything by getting promoted. So you can use everything in this story and apply it to your own. But I thought this was the perfect time to tell that story. And Lord knows I got so many. But I'm so thankful that Sergeant Major, moved the chess pieces on the chessboard, if you will, and moved me to another section. Because I don't know if I would have made Master Sergeant if I hadn't moved to the S3 and got an evaluation from that time I was in the S3. But I tell you, man, it's such a phenomenal time. And I went there as the E7. It was all these master sergeants in there, and I had to kind of, do things and figure everything out. But man, it was such a beautiful, beautiful time, man. Just Okinawa, Japan will always hold something close to my heart. For one, it's probably the best family assignment I ever had, and probably it is the best duty station I've had in terms of location and everything that you can learn, man. But I will always say Korea was the culminating event. So again, appreciate that, man. Thank you for guys for listening, for watching here on YouTube. You can find the Trust and Believe NOMADCAST at YouTube at Retired Master Sergeant 20. If you prefer the audio version, again, I'm on Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Podcast Chaser, Podcast Addict, to name a few. So appreciate that. Appreciate the support.